What's going on, everybody? This is the SI Sooners podcast, episode 117. Josh Callaway in Oklahoma City, John Hoover in Tulsa, Ryan Chapman in Norman on this wonderful Thursday, April the 7th. Big day. First day of the Masters and MLB opening day being the same day. Oh, just the spring vibes. It's immaculate today.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. You see Ryan's got his jersey on, Braves jersey. I'm with you though, man. It doesn't feel like opening day if the Yanks are not playing. So
I'm very used to the last maybe more, but it definitely lasts like 5-6 years. The Yankees have been the first game on opening day noon, usually at home, like every year, and they were supposed to be again this year, but the weather out in New York is horrible. It's like just pouring down rain today, so they bumped the game to tomorrow, and so it just doesn't feel like opening day to me. I'm gonna watch a lot of baseball, but it doesn't hit the same without the pinstripes. But
yeah, we're thankful to the University of Oklahoma football program for opting to take opening day off as far as media availability, stuff like that. We're obviously coming to you Thursday because we had fresh stuff yesterday. But real quick, before we get into it, just a complete self-serving PSA. A few of us Oklahoma media are in a fantasy baseball league. We drafted last night, and I clearly have the least working baseball knowledge of anyone in the crew. So at Radios Ryan, my DMs are always open if you have good fantasy baseball advice. Only good fantasy baseball advice, however, not bad advice.
I don't know if my team is any good, but we're going to hit dingers on my team. I have a lot of home runs.
They're going to be fun.
I'm going to win the RBI category and the runs category. Those are mine. The rest of the team, I don't know. I didn't take like any pitchers until way too late, but we'll see how it goes. That's going to be a fun league. It's half Oklahoma, half Oklahoma State beat. And we're split up into divisions and everything. It's going to be intense. So we'll update that throughout the spring and summer. But anyway, good stuff here. I mean, we're rolling through the spring. The spring game is just a little over 2 weeks away, believe it or not. We continue to move right through. We got more details on how the Baker statue stuff's going to work. We speculated that last week. It is going to be, from what I've heard, my understanding is that everything will be on the field, but the statue reveal will be in the spot, and it'll just be played on the screen. So like Baker will be on the field, and all the hoopla will be on the field. So that makes sense. That's kind of what Who speculated last week. They're not going to roll the statue in like we maybe thought, but there you go. So that's how that's going to work, which seemingly makes the most sense.
That's going to be weird for Baker because every other statue they've unveiled, except for Billy Vessels, of course, the guy was right there. You pull the veil down, and there's the statue, and you're looking up, and you're going, "Wow, Baker's going to be in the stadium. He's going to be looking at a giant TV screen." It's just, I don't know. It's not fair. It's kind of weird.
Do you think while Baker's in the stadium, he can just hang out after the spring game? They can shoot some more at home at Progressive spots, so they'll just have evergreen content since they don't know what stadium he's going to need to be in next fall.
Yeah. We were talking about it at the OU baseball game Tuesday night. A few of other guys on the beat. I wonder if Baker will talk or not, be made available. Like you would think he would, but also like his agent may be like,
Yeah.
I mean, not that any of us really care about his NFL status. Like nobody's going to ask him about that. Probably. Like, what do we care, really? You know what I mean? So I don't know.
He's an NFL quarterback, man. He will have been trained to say, "Yeah, we'll just have to see what the future brings." Something very tepid, very pedestrian. Yeah. He's not going to say anything inflammatory. So I think he will speak to the media probably after the spring game, or maybe he might do something at halftime. That would be cool.
Yeah, I'd be down for either. I'd be down for him just throw him at the podium like right after Brent, like just kind of make him part of the post game. That's kind of would be the easiest to me. But we'll see how that shakes out. It's going to be a very fun day here in a couple weeks. And again, like I said last week, just Mother Nature, be cool. Just be cool. It's been so windy. We don't need that day. Let's just be cool for a day, please. Have normal post game again. That'll be weird for the first time in forever, having a post game completely in person, normal. I assume and back in the red room. That'll be really weird too. But good stuff coming up in just a couple weeks. So spring ball's raging on here. We're like I said, we're in the last couple of weeks. We'll backtrack to last Friday, which was crazy. I don't know how well the general public really knows. I don't know why they would, but basically Friday morning at 6:30 in the morning, we were informed via email that we are allowed to go to practice today. Now, I'm not up at 6:30. Hoove was, but he's in Tulsa. So, what's he going to do? He texts us like, hey, if you guys can see this. Ryan somehow did see it in time and made it there. Being Norman certainly helps with that. I saw it like at 9, like literally when practice was going to be open. So I was not there. But the big news that came out of it far and away was that Justin Harrington was there. And we don't know. His whole situation's been crazy. He entered the portal back in October, early October, and now he has reemerged with the team. You guys can take it however you want. Just reaction to that. What does the impact mean, if anything? I believe it was Ryan Aber reported that he's currently a walk-on. He just came back, basically. What kind of an addition is this for Oklahoma? A guy who we've heard, going back to the previous regime, Grinch and Lincoln Riley, he's like, supposed to be the man, but we never got to really see it. But now he's back. Yeah. It's kind of a crazy situation.
We've seen some weird stuff out of the transfer portal, haven't we? With A.D. Miller going to Illinois and rolling and then coming back to Oklahoma. Trey Bradford coming from LSU to Oklahoma for about 3 weeks and then deciding to change his mind and go back to LSU. And now we've seen this where, Justin Harrington is in the portal for 6 months, no takers on what was previously the number one JUCO prospect in the country, a junior college defensive back All-American. Could play safety, could play corner, could play nickel. Who wants him? Nobody wants him. So he comes back to Oklahoma and he doesn't have a scholarship. Entering the portal under Lincoln Riley, Lincoln used that as his prerogative to remove you from scholarship for the rest of the semester. So that's how his deal shook out. Now, did he stay in school? Is he still academically eligible? There's questions to be answered. What's his status academically this spring? Can he play right now? He can practice. He looked really good at practice, but it's just such an odd thing. It seems like every time something happens with Oklahoma in the transfer portal, it's like, well, this has never happened before. Yeah, because this is brand new to everybody. And every time something happens, it literally is brand new. I think he's going to be a big help, though. I really do. If he's got that knee situation figured out, he's got that fire back maybe after taking a year off, a season off, half a season off. I think he looked, I'll just say it again, he looked really good in practice. And I think he's probably going to earn that scholarship back pretty quick.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he doesn't earn the scholarship back. But frankly, guys, I have no idea what this means for the team, what kind of help he can be, because he never played. We saw him play in a spring game at corner, where I think we would all agree is probably not the best spot for him, where he can either, like Hoove said, slide over to nickel, where he can be physical. And like, in my mind, he would have been the perfect guy that, hey, Charlie Kolar's a problem, right? Those huge tight ends over the middle. Well, you've got a massive guy that can play in coverage. We never got to see that. We never got to see him play at safety. So I have no idea what he brings to the table as far as can he produce at the highest level at college football, which is what Oklahoma needs. But what it does do is add another guy into that safeties room, because that's where he's practicing, that has football experience at the JUCO level, who's been a highly touted guy before. If he stays a walk-on, that's as good as walk-on depth as you can add to a team. A guy with that athletic pedigree, even coming off a knee injury a couple of years ago. So, frankly, I just don't know. I've seen him in one spring game and then 2 10-minute availabilities at practice last year where he was basically stretching, and then the 45, 50 minutes last Friday. So what does it mean on the field? I've got no clue. He's just a big question mark at Oklahoma.
I think he did get into the Western Carolina game, was it? A couple of early games, didn't play much, is kind of mop-up time. But no, you're right, Ryan. His body of work on the Division I level, it's just, there's no other way to put it. It's sketchy right now. We don't know. We just don't know what's there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, like I said before, at the very least, it's another option, obviously. We'll see.
He's physical.
Yeah. You just can look at the guy and say, like, okay, that looks like somebody who could be used. It's important to say that right now, at 12-16, I just checked, he's still not on the roster, the official online roster, which has kind of been that's been, I don't know the right word. That's like the the last line of if he's on there, that's officially official, and he's not as of now. So I don't know where he's at this spring. Would love to see him in the spring game, but I have no idea if that's realistic or not. So I guess
I think that's standard for a lot of walk-ons in the spring, that he wouldn't be on the actual roster, printed roster. Yeah. So there are some that are, but there are some that join the team. To join the team 5 practices into spring practice. Yeah. It just adds another level of weird to this thing. We're going to, I think, pretty much, for the most part, pretty sure we're going to talk to Brent Venables tomorrow morning. We'll ask him for sure what Justin's status is.
Yeah, that'll absolutely come up. So we are getting Brent Venables tomorrow, and so keep it a look. Watch out for all the information coming out of that tomorrow on allsooners.com, as well as obviously the press conference video, which will be there for you as well. Getting Brent for the third time this spring. Yeah, third time this spring. Getting Mr. Venables tomorrow. We got a little bit of heads up this time. We got told on like Tuesday. That's how Brent rolls. He just fly by it was literally, my impression was it was literally just like, yeah, let him come to practice today. And they just, fired it off. It was a wild thing. We were talking about it.
You know what I thought it was? Yeah. Josh, you know what I thought it was? I thought he woke up, looked at the practice schedule and said, boys, we're doing inside drill today. We're doing Oklahoma drill. Y'all want to get the media out there and get some cameras going? That would be fun, wouldn't it? I think he likes that visual of guys blocking each other, guys hitting each other. And we ate it up last week. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, because I was going to say that Fridays, not only do we get an open practice for the first half of it basically on Friday, but previously it had been, hey, we got 5 periods of practice. That was a little bit of stretching, then their special teams and their individual coaching drills. And then once they kind of move to some of those other team periods, that's when we get shuffled out. The 5th horn sounds, and as Pavlov's dogs, the Oklahoma Media Corps, we start to turn our cameras off and start to shuffle toward the exit. My cat's like, no, guys, you got another 2 periods today, and you're going to want to watch this. And it was the W drill, lo and behold, and it was a ton of fun. You talk about like the physicality. Harrington was up in there planting some hits on people. Here was the biggest thing that I came away from it. And again, it's W drill in March, April. That's not going to translate to wins, losses, or whatever. But it kind of just gives you a window into the mentality, right? So on the next to last rep, Billy Bowman is the safety that's back. Javonte Barnes, the true freshman coming in, he's the running back for that portion of it. And Billy Bowman comes up and just lays a huge hit on Barnes. Barnes kind of stutters to the side and it steps what would be deemed as out of bounds. So the whistles start blowing, and Billy Bowman wanted to bring Javonte Barnes to the ground. Javonte Barnes did not want to get tackled. I was worried that we were going to bear witness to the first public camp fight of spring football as the defense was rushing over. But no, it was a battle. Finally, the coach was like, okay, enough. And it just shows that, look, Jay Valai, he's yelling all the time, be physical. You're not going to play for me if you're physical. Seems to be a new edge in that Oklahoma secondary. They got the size back under Grinch and Manning, but we haven't seen that out of OU corners and safeties in a decade, maybe.
Absolutely. So yeah, it's a shame that I wasn't able to be out there. What are you gonna do? You just find out as it was happening. Yeah, no kidding. Jeez. But good stuff, from that. And so we'll see. I don't know if we're going to practice again. I would assume not, but also that was just like out of nowhere. So who knows? We'll see what happens throughout the rest of the spring. And also shout out Mike Hack on that email because it was on April 1st. And so he said, this is not an April Fool's joke. This is actually happening, which is funny. Like Ryan said, I appreciate that because it was so unlike anything that I had ever seen. It's like just last second, like, hey, you can come to practice. That the April Fool's part was necessary.
If Lincoln was still the coach, it would have been an April Fool's joke.
And he would have thought it was hilarious.
Yeah,
Lincoln would have really cackled at that one. You thought I'd let you come to practice. Idiots. Especially that late in the spring.
Did we enjoy the dueling content between Oklahoma football and USC football this past week of coaches getting in the middle of drills and doing push-ups and things?
It is unbelievable.
It's an arms race.
It is unbelievable. It may be coincidence, I don't know, but like literally every time Oklahoma or USC does anything, the other school responds to it in some fashion, like right away. And I don't know, like Ryan said, with the exercise, like the coaches doing the push-ups thing. And then I saw, USC's been doing a lot of touting about Los Angeles, and Oklahoma all of a sudden has ramped up like all their Oklahoma City stuff. And like John Finley yesterday was wearing a 405 shirt. Like I'd never seen that before.
And don't forget,
like this,
yeah, like Oklahoma announces their spring game, and then like 2 days later, it's our spring game's on the same day, and oh, by the way, it's on ESPN for USC. It's like,
yeah, no, it's I don't know if it, it seems like it, like you said, it's an art, like it's just serve and return, just back and forth of Oklahoma has like felt the need to start pushing, like, hey, we're right by a fairly big city, we're not in the middle of nowhere, like it's kind of being treated, Kenzie Milton comments or what have you, so it's like it's been interesting to see these kind of two social media teams kind of go back and forth. And yeah, the Lincoln and the coaches doing the up and downs was the most obvious play on the Venables thing so far, though. That was so played out. Like it was very obvious what that was intending to do. So kind of funny stuff. If you didn't see that, go check it out on Twitter. OU fans had a field day with that. Of course they did, because they have a field day with everything USC does right now. All right, elsewhere with spring. It was, another good week, productive week. We're kind of getting in. Some of the nice part about the spring and fall camp, of course, that you get to talk to all the assistant coaches and you get to talk to players you don't always get to talk to. So, this week we got Jay Valai on Monday and John Finley yesterday. We'll start there before we get into players. Things that just stuck out from those two guys. Anything that jumps out at you. I'll say Jay Valai is a lot of fun to talk to. Got the second time we got him this spring. He was great. Again, anything that stuck out from Valai or Finley this week?
Yeah, Jay got to talk about both of his starting cornerbacks, and Woody Washington and DJ Graham. He had a lot of good things to say about both guys, whose last performance, you'll remember, was the Alamo Bowl against Oregon, where one guy got cooked twice on the deep ball, and another one got cooked once. And I think they just had bad eyes, got a little maybe lost in the moment of what's happening, in the bowl game. Bob Stoops, Lincoln Riley, all that stuff. I think they maybe just got a little distracted on those plays. I think they're better players than that. But that being said, that's their last impression. Goes in their body of work. And Jay Valai comes in, and the first thing he sees is probably their most recent game. And he's like, what is that? So he's got some maybe repairing to do, rebuilding of some egos. I don't know. Cornerbacks, they say have to have a short memory. And if you talk to Jay Valai, his corners have a short memory and are going to play aggressive. They're going to play with confidence. And I think that if you just listen to him, man, that confidence, any confidence that they have in themselves is going to start with him, because he talks fast. He talks certain. He's got a lot of phrases that he gets to throughout a press conference answer, whether you asked him that question or not. So he's an interesting guy. He's a lot of fun to listen to.
Yeah, the other thing on Valai is I was just curious. So we talked about DJ Graham and his comments at the start of spring ball is the corners, we got to do one thing in the last defense, and in this one we get to do so much more. You feel like you're part of the defense, but mentally that's also the position you don't want thinking, right? It is a corner. You've got to be very reactionary. And Jay Valai basically likened it to, if you ask a bunch of kids to read a book in a class, what's everyone going to do? They're going to turn to Spark Notes if you have to read this huge book really quickly. So his goal is to give everyone the Spark Notes of here's the shortcuts of you see this, it means this, do that. Kind of gives you a window into the teaching aspect of the coaching, which I thought was really fascinating. And then John Finley, like the takeaways is he is stoked about his group that he's got. Braden Willis, obviously the returner. We kind of know Braden Willis, but he's going to get a much bigger role. John, very excited about Daniel Parker, what he brings as a blocker. And also he highlighted, like, I know he labels himself as the blocking tight end, but he's got hands too. So don't be surprised there. And then he seems to be stoked with Caden Helms and Jason Llewellyn, the two true freshmen that came in, as far as guys that it sounds like they mentally are so intelligent and pick things up so quickly that they'll be able to find packages and things where they can utilize both those guys this year, which will be really interesting because just not often one of those positions where you're responsible for so much. John likened it to being you're like a quarterback that you have to know everything that true freshmen don't always get on the field.
Another thing that Joe John said that stood out to me was his history with Daniel Parker at Missouri. Coached him as a true freshman. Here's a kid that comes in as a defensive end, right? Wants to be a Division I defensive end. They have some injury situation going on at tight end. He moves over, he fills in. Pretty soon he's scrimmaging with the ones and twos, and pretty soon he's starting on the field for the Missouri Tigers in the Southeastern Conference. He's like, well, what the heck? So the end of the season rolls around and they say, okay, you ready to go back to DN? He goes, no, man, I think he's like, God put me on this earth to be a tight end. You directed me here to this position. So I just find that fascinating. And the fact that he has a history with his position coach, he comes to a new school. And one of the reasons is Joe John Finley's here. So that's going to be cool to watch that kind of rapport between those two guys evolve.
Yeah, and something that was really interesting too to kind of continue that conversation was hearing Braden Willis yesterday. And Ryan, you were over there because everybody was around Braden Willis at the time that he came out to talk. He said that him and Daniel Parker's chemistry and relationship on the field is just as good as him and Jeremiah Hall's was. Already he felt that way, which that was surprising. Obviously how close those guys are, and they play together for multiple seasons. So for him to say that, he feels like they're already pretty much to that spot, that's got to be, pretty encouraging if you're an Oklahoma fan for what that room is going to look like this season. Now, elsewhere, as far as the players, got lots of defensive guys on Monday, and obviously went back to offensive guys yesterday. I got to talk to some new dudes, McCabe Matalier yesterday, which was cool to get to hear him for the first time. He talked about, I believe he said that whenever Bill Bedenbaugh called him, I think somebody asked him to the extent of like, what was the recruiting pitch like? And he's like, there wasn't one. It said like, we have a spot. And I said, yes, it was like 10 minutes done. So I appreciated that, that he was that open about it. And then going back to Monday, Woody Washington, to tie back into the Jay Valai conversation, he had more, and it's very similar to what DJ Graham had said earlier in the spring, more about we love having a guy who played corner being the coach. They continue to kind of, without saying it, take ricochet shots at Roy Manning. Just clearly the fact that Roy Manning was not a cornerback by trade was not lost on these guys. It's been brought up like every time that they talk about Jay Valai. He played the position. He knows the position. So I think that that continues to be kind of a sticking point. But anything else that jumped out to you guys from all the players? We got a lot of guys. They're all there for you. Also on allsooners.com if you want to go catch up with them, all the dudes that we got this week.
I thought Wanya Morris was interesting too because here's a guy who started for 2 years at Tennessee. He was on the SEC all-freshman team. People were saying when he transferred to Oklahoma from Tennessee, you're like, I made the comment myself, and I think others had made it as well. He might be a 1-year starter because he's going to go to the NFL draft early. He might be a first-round talent. Guy didn't even get on the field hardly at Oklahoma in his first year. So what does he do? He, instead of pouting, instead of running off to the transfer portal or saying, nobody likes me here, he kind of rededicates himself, refocuses his mind, clears his mind, buys into Schmitty, buys into Brent Venables, and buys into Jeff Lebby. He said Jeff Lebby's the real deal when it comes to tempo. But offensive linemen are losing weight. They're getting faster. They're getting better, in better shape. That's got to be a good thing for the Oklahoma offense. But that was interesting to hear him basically say, I needed a reset. I needed to clear my mind and get things right, just assuming that I was going to come in here and be the guy.
Yeah, and that story's up on allsooners.com right now, that basically he had a moment with his mom after he came back from the bowl game home for that little offseason period where they basically had a come to Jesus talk of like, hey, what do you want this to be? What do you want this experience to be? And he looked within himself and kind of has this whole new approach. I thought the other interesting thing is something that, we've kind of talked about, the three of us just behind the scenes, is a lot of interest in left-handed quarterback. What does that do for the offensive line? Right. We know that Bill Bedenbaugh, one of his recruiting pitches is that he runs a pretty symmetrical system. So you have a chance to play left side, right side. We talked to Jeff Lebby about it. He's like, no, there's no difference. It's fine. Wanya Morris is a guy that's like, yeah, I played for a left-handed quarterback all through middle school and high school ball. Like his quarterback growing up was a left-handed quarterback. And so he kind of had some of the technical differences as far as playing left tackle, right tackle. It's obviously something that he's familiar with. So it's one of those things where, okay, if Anton Harrison it continues to be the real deal at left tackle, that doesn't mean that there's not a spot on the field for Wanya Morris. So it'll just be interesting to see once the spring game rolls around if he's a guy that's rolling out there on the right side as well again.
Yeah, and to tie in that, I mentioned we talked to McCade Matoyer. He talked about how he had been a right guard at Cal pretty exclusively, but that they're working him at left guard so far this spring. So they're kind of variable Beatonbow, moving him around, kind of playing with the pieces. So I'm very interested in the offensive line. I don't really, if you told me to, kind of map out what it's going to look like, there's a lot of ways you could kind of take it. Other than Andrew Rame, we know that. The rest of it's kind of push it around.
Yeah, and Josh, if I remember right, Matoyer said during that interview, he said he's got several practices where he's gotten reps with the ones at right guard as well.
Yeah.
So he's moving back and forth. And Beatonbow loves that stuff. So that's got to be a good thing. He looks good too, doesn't he? I mean, big, thick, strong, like shoulders and neck. Like I only got to see him from here up because I wasn't at the other. Right. But he's not pudgy. He's not roly-poly, like a lot of offensive linemen come in and they're soft or whatever. This guy's cut. He's ready to get out there and hit some people. And he's got the long blonde hair like Thor. He looks like Thor. He looks like the God of Thunder.
Yeah, he's ready to go. He was fun to talk to. So I'm looking forward to maybe hearing from him more throughout the year. And then as far as just a couple other guys, kind of keeping that train of kind of fresh start resets. That's something we've heard a lot from these players so far this spring. David Ugwoegbu and Ethan Downs would both be thrown into that kind of realm as well. David Ugwoegbu, I don't know what you thought, Ryan, but to me, he seemed, obviously he's still huge and he's a monster, but he seemed a little more lean to me. Like he's a little more kind of, he's still huge. I'm not acting like he's not huge, but he seemed a little more kind of, I don't know, fit in a way. That sounds like he wasn't before, but I'm very excited for David Ugwoegbu in this Brent Venables defense. I feel like he's a guy, I was really high on him last year. Season was kind of hit or miss. Very pumped to see what he looks like next year. Said he always wanted to come back to Oklahoma, all that good stuff. So very excited to see what he does next year as well.
We need him in a neck roll. That's all he's lacking, I think. That's his next step. I wonder if with the return of Brent, with the return of some old school hardcore linebacking, if we don't see a few more neck rolls out there this season.
They need to just do the full setup that Venables wore when he played. You've seen that clip, right?
The 4 shoulder pads high.
He's like a damn machine. He's not even human. You can't see any. He literally looks like Terminator, like a robot football player. If you've never seen that clip, please go find it.
That's how we rolled in the 80s, man. The more neck rolls, the more pads, the bigger the shoulder pads you could get, the better.
It was amazing.
Did you guys see the photo come out yesterday of Dusty Dvorak, Teddy Lehman, and Dan Cody with Brent Venables? I wanted to tweet that out and remind people that Brent Venables was a Division I linebacker. I mean, he looks like a little bitty dude. He looks like a kicker compared to those guys. But yet here's a former Division I linebacker. What a great photo that was.
Dan Cody, big human.
Big dude.
Big human. He is big, which also ties back into the Phil Lowerhole conversation. He's out of practice every time we're there. I mean,
he casts a shadow, does he not?
Big human. All right, we'll take a break. More football stuff to get through. So got some recruiting updates and other good stuff. Lots going on. We'll keep it up going on next up here on the SI Sooners podcast.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Kerry with Trade Pros here. We've got a brand new service program coming out this year. It's the new All-Star Service Program. It's only $25 a month. The great thing about it is it's going to save you guys a ton of money throughout the year. Furnace and air conditioning repairs can be very expensive. If you guys need a service call and you're signed up with us, you're not going to have to pay that service charge. The repair is under $500. Trade Pros is going to take care of that as well. Anything over that, you guys are just going to be responsible for 25% of that. Go give us a like on Facebook. Check us out at TradeProsOKC.com or give us a call at 405-639-9991.
On Twitter, you can follow SI Sooners at @all_Sooners. Ryan's at Radios Ryan. Who's at John E. Hoover. I'm at Josh M. Callaway. Our website is allsooners.com. We are a Fan Nation affiliate, part of the Sports Illustrated Network. All right, segment 2. Got some other football stuff to clean up here before we get into some other sports on the back end of the show. Still miss the Groves Bros. Still feel like they should be in the third segment. Like it's going to take a while to shake that a little bit. I keep feeling like they're coming. What are they doing? Like we should always like a summer episode, just a catch up maybe. But we'll wrap up with other sports in the third segment. I want to start here with something kind of cool, and Hoove, we're going to lean on you here, obviously, because you have much more experience with what exactly this is like. But the Coaches Caravan is back. This just got announced today, a little bit ago before we started recording. Basically, it's Brent Venables, Porter Moser, and Jenny Baranchek are just going to kind of like go on a tour of 7 cities, kind of speaking to fans about their programs and like their visions and how fans can like donate and help. Yeah. It sounds like it starts in Tulsa on April 28th. They're in 7 cities. The full story and the schedule is there for you on allsooners.com if you want to go check it out. This is an interesting thing. Obviously, again, Hoove, you have some experience in this area as far as what it's like. This is kind of a cool thing, though, that they're bringing this back.
Yeah, a lot of our listeners are going to remember the Sooner Caravan, obviously. And here's the thing. When Brent Venables was hired, one of the first things I did, like mid-December, early January, I started reaching out to the Sooner Club, Sooner Club of Tulsa, Sooner Club of Dallas, whatnot, to find out, hey, now that Lincoln's gone, you guys going to bring the Sooner Caravan back? This was a Lincoln Riley production, you guys. I know this for younger folks like yourself out there. This is like, well, what is this? What is this about? This has been going. Sooner Caravan has been going since the 50s. Okay. Bud Wilkinson used to do the Sooner Caravan. Lincoln Riley comes in and says, how does this help me? How does this help me win games? How does this make me money? How does it do whatever? There's a couple of things to that. Number one, it actually does make him money because if you look at his contract, he's got personal services and speaking engagements. And this is a speaking engagement. This is where the head coach gets up, talks to the crowd. Everybody's having steak and chicken and whatever. And the head coach is up there talking and he's doing an interview maybe with Toby Rowland or whatever the format is. And, the coach will go sit at a table and autograph a bunch of helmets or photographs or whatever items you bring, right? This is an outreach effort by the university to get its coach, who's the most highly paid person in the state of Oklahoma, in terms of public employee, to get the coach to be in touch with the fans, to let the coach be a part of, or let the fans be a part of the coach's existence and experience. And fans love that stuff. They love interacting. They love going out. They love seeing them live and hearing them talk. Lincoln Riley rolls in and says, this isn't going to help us. I don't know why I'm doing this. You think you're better than Bud Wilkinson? You think you're better than Barry Switzer and Bob Stoops to cancel the Sooner Caravan? That was maddening. That was absolutely ripped the heart out of a lot of people who don't get to go to games, a lot of people who don't get to hear the coach speak live and interact with him, and they pay $40 and go sit at a dinner and hear the coaches. People hated him for that. And he was like, hated him to the point where, well, he's still our coach. He knows what's best, but gosh, we wish he'd come here. Now that he's gone, of course, it's like, good, Brent Venables is back. We can get Sooner Caravan back. And that's exactly what's happened. The schedule is amazing. I don't know if you guys saw this. April 28th, you've got Tulsa, Oklahoma at the Canes Ballroom. Okay. They used to have this on the OU Tulsa campus, the Schusterman Center. It's at Canes Ballroom, which is a historic concert venue. Fantastic. Amarillo, Texas on May 10th. Amarillo, Texas? I don't remember them going to Amarillo before. Brent Venables knows, hey, we can go to Amarillo. We can do some outreach. We got a lot of fans there. We can maybe do a little recruiting while we're there. That's at the Amarillo Civic Center. Okay. It's not at some, local armory or something. It's at the Amarillo Civic Center, which is huge. May 12th, Duncan, Oklahoma at the county fairgrounds. Ridiculous. May 17th in Houston. May 19th in Dallas. Hello, recruiting. May 24th in Wichita. They're having that one at the B-52 hangar or whatever, the B-29 hangar out at the airport. And then May 26th in Oklahoma City. Welcome back, Sooner Caravan. I'm fired up. I think we should go cover all these things.
I will say I do kind of like the idea of a double feature of Brent, Jenny Baranchak, Porter Moser, and the B-52s stopping in Wichita. The van, not the hangar. But no, this is the... Brent Venables has talked about it, not being transactional, right? A relationship. He's a relationship guy. We've seen that from what all the players say, from just his entire career, from just his interactions with us of Now we go to a press conference and it's not we're going to sit here behind this line and lob questions at him and he's going to play defense for 5 minutes and then get to the next one. He's interacting, he's talking back and forth. So it just, if he's doing that with us, who, right, wrong, or otherwise, at times the media are pitted against the head coach and all this stuff, then why wouldn't he be relational with the fan base and donors and people who support the program and just want to, like you said, John, build that relationship with their new head coach who they remember from years ago? It makes a ton of sense. I'm happy that Jenny Bronchek's going to be along as well, just because we know from getting to talk to her, if you can sit down and talk with Jenny Bronchek, you're going to be fired up about Oklahoma women's basketball. And Porter Moser, is it 2 stops right now that he's for sure locked in for? And then schedule permitting, he'll try to be at the others. It just makes sense, especially in a day and age where so many teams feel like we have a Twitter account. We can just do our own in-house PR, in-house media, all this stuff. You don't have to leave Norman's campus to do everything that you want outside of going to recruit. That was the Lincoln Riley method, and you saw that it wore on the fans, especially when you're not winning at the clip that they think you should be at as far as winning a playoff game, being in a national championship, all that stuff.
I'll tell you this, too. I'm a little disappointed, guys, over the past 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is, that the University of Oklahoma, the administration, whether it's Joe or the president or whoever, the Sooner Club, whoever, didn't make Lincoln Riley stick to the script. Okay, Lincoln Riley comes in and what does he do? He's like, I'm not going to do that. Barry Switzer did it. I'm not going to do it. How does it help me? How does it help me win? How does it help me get recruits? What do you mean? This is Oklahoma football, you know? And he just never really, I think this is another illustration of he never was like that guy, that lifer. Okay. He was the handpicked choice of Bob Stoops. Bob thought he was going to be here forever. Probably should have been here forever. But this illustrated and this served as kind of notice. I'm not really that invested. I'm from Muleshoe, Texas. I'm not really that invested in OU football. You know, he put himself in it while he was here. But at the same time, he kind of removed himself from it as well. And I think this is a good illustration of that. Brent Venables, all in. You can say with both feet, but he's really up to his neck in OU football right now.
Yeah, this is really just going to kind of be the Joe Castiglione showcase, because these are the 3 hires in the last year that, while Venables hasn't played a game yet, is kind of his shiny look what I did, you know, because he's seemed to all be home runs. Obviously, Moser and Bronchek both really, you know, Bronchek especially, a fantastic first year. Moser, a really good first year. It seems like he's going in the right direction. Obviously, Venables so far, you know, seemingly is doing a fabulous job. So kind of cool for OU fans just to kind of get introduced to all these people, just because they're all new. You know, 1 season in for 2 of them and going into their first season for the others. So kind of a cool thing there to kind of get all 3 of these people together. I like the synergy. I like the different sports kind of doing things together. So it's kind of cool. Something that Brent Venables has been a little better about, certainly, so far.
Is this our opportunity, too, to have Venables and Moser in the same room to make, like, they should make them play Battleship on stage in front of the entire group, just like...
Yeah, I was wondering, I mean, I assume that they've met, but I don't know if I don't think they have anything on film of these guys in the same place, at least I can remember.
They can't shake hands because matter and antimatter will explode when they touch. They're the same. They're the same person. They can't occupy the same space at the same time. So
that's some energy. That is a lot of energy.
It's amazing.
I
like Ryan's on Brent's hiring day. Ryan's reference to the Spider-Man meme when Porter walked in. We all went Spider-Man meme. They're pointing at each other. They're the same guy.
I believe I tweeted. I don't know if you guys have seen the movie The Replacements, where the coach grabs a linebacker and they just like scream in each other's face, like, ah! Like that's how I pictured Venables and Moser on each other's game days. So pretty fun to get them in the same place. And then Bronchek's right there with them as far as energy and all that stuff. So that's going to be cool. It's going to be a cool thing for fans. And like you said, Hoover, reading off that schedule, if you're an OU fan, like anywhere in the area, there's one within shouting distance of you. I mean, pretty much anybody in this zone. South Texas, North Texas, South Oklahoma, North Oklahoma, Kansas. Anywhere in this zone, you have one that's within reason for you. So obviously keep an eye out for that, and we'll see how many of those we can make it to. Obviously a couple are easy, Tulsa and OKC, but after that, I don't know. We'll figure it out, obviously, in due time. We got a little bit of time to figure it out. But that's a cool thing for sure. All right, flipping over to some recruiting stuff. Got a few things to clean up here. We'll start with the bad news for OU fans. Get it out of the way first. Levius Overton picked the Texas A&M. This is not shocking. We talked about it on last week's show. He set his announcement date for Friday before he'd even visited OU and all that stuff. It was like, yeah, that doesn't look good. And he made it official. He picked Texas A&M. So not a whole lot to analyze here, but obviously missing out on a really big fish in that 22 class, which is a bummer, certainly for Oklahoma.
Yeah, like Texas A&M needs any more 5-star defensive tackles.
They are loaded. Right? Man.
They've got, 9 5-stars, and 5 of them are defensive tackles in one class. And he reclassified from 23 to 22 and is still one of the top 20 prospects in the 22 class. That's how good he is, or at least he's projected to be. What a story. I mean, for Texas A&M to take what was already, again, we're using the metrics of the recruiting ranking online services, which are Rivals and 24/7, and they say that is the best recruiting class that has ever been signed in the what they're calling the online era.
Yeah.
And then they had a 5-star who's like the 17th or 12th best player in the country. A&M is doing some things money-wise, okay, with their NIL promises and packages and the collective that they've put together. They're doing some things that other people are just afraid to do when it comes to promising student athletes or prospects, hey, we can do this for you. You can make this much. We'll give you this many dollars. They're doing things that other schools are just afraid to do, guys, or they're throwing money at these kids in a way. Other schools are saying it's like a bidding war, right? And everybody's bidding up $5 or $20 or $100, and A&M comes in and bids up $300,000, and you're like, whoa, that's not for me. That's what other schools, when they're putting together packages for these kids, NIL deals and considerations and what the collectives are doing. A&M comes along and it's like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to compete with that. We're not going to pay you anywhere near that much, or we're not going to make sure that somebody else pays you anywhere near that much. A&M is redefining this whole NIL thing. I think it's not going to last. I think the NCAA is obviously they're looking into it, but they're going to come together. The NCAA is going to come together with, legislators around the country, and they're going to try and make some kind of across the board national standard. And they're going to say, okay, here's the max. And A&M is like way up here. And they're going to say, here's what the max is. And A&M is going to have to come back to the pack eventually.
Yeah, I likened it to, I play a ton of Texas Hold'em, and in friendly games, you've got, oh, hey, there are these hands that everyone just calls the big blind pre-flop, and then A&M is the big blind, and instead of just checking in, they're just like, hey, we're also going to raise it another $3,000 when the blinds are like $200. Like, that's what A&M's doing. And you know what? For the A&M purview, you want to know why they've been able to maximize this so quickly? It's not a new system of what they're doing, allegedly. I think we have to say that legally. It's not a new system of what they're doing. It's now just not under the table anymore. So,
yeah, that's the thing. There's no rules, like you guys were saying about the podcast last week. Let's take our shirts off. There's no rules. No, there's a couple of rules. But right now, A&M is doing it their way, and everybody else right now is going, yeah, we're not going to do that. We're not going to throw that kind of money or that kind of attention on a guy who's a high school kid.
Absolutely. So it's wild times right now. We'll see what happens, but A&M is certainly reaping the benefits in a big way. We'll see if it translates on the field, but it feels like, how could it not?
Well, they don't have a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, the class is insane. And the quarterback position needs to be addressed. That is very true. But that defensive front is going to be nasty soon.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that looks. And Oklahoma's going to get to see it whenever that SEC move happens. When that is, I don't know. I mean, it could be – we haven't talked about that in a while, but when the SEC transition, we all kind of assumed that this would be the last year. But things are weird with the buyouts and stuff, so I don't know. But we'll see how that shakes out. But yeah, A&M gets another one there with Overton. So elsewhere, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. Who've talked to Micah Tease. I don't. Time is running together. I think that was like 2-3 weeks ago. I don't remember. but had the story come out on All Sooners. Who obviously this is your story, so we'll let you run point on it. But he basically talked about playing both ways a little bit, kind of open to playing a little bit of defense at Oklahoma if that's what it came to.
He wants to play offense, is what he told me. He prefers to play offense, but he said it's not going to be a deal, that hangs anything up in his recruiting process. He did say that the defensive coaching staff has been recruiting him and recruiting him hard ever since Brent Venables first showed up and got to Tulsa and told Gentry Williams, hey, tell Micah Tease I'm going to call him, and then called him a couple days later, right? Followed through. He said the defensive staff is recruiting him hard, but he's been talking to Jeff Lebby too. He wants to play wide receiver. He wants to play offense. So maybe he can do both eventually at some point. But boy, he's a talented kid, and he's really good in front of the camera too. Really good in front of the microphone. If you guys get a chance, go to All Sooners and check out his interview that I did at a local 7-on-7 here in Tulsa, Broken Arrow, a few weeks back. Just a fun kid to talk to. I made the jump. I did. I jumped in with both feet and said, I think Micah Tease might be the most engaging young high school football player I've ever spoken with. Just in terms of, how are you, sir? Nice to meet you. Hey, how's it going? Where are you from? How far? Oh, really? You live in this town? How far are you from this? Asking me all kinds of questions. He's asking me all kinds of questions about me.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting. I have never had a kid just turn it on and engage me like that before. I thought that was really cool. So you can imagine what it's like being his teammate, coaching him. He just, in terms of personal relationships, that's the first time I met him. And he acted like we'd been friends for a long time. I thought that was really cool for what is, I think, a 17-year-old kid. Pretty impressive.
Yeah. And, that lines up with, I got to go see him when Booker T played Del City. Yeah, that's right. Early last fall, and him and Gentry both are that way. So that's a connection that'll be an ace in the hole for Oklahoma, as far as Gentry being able to link up with that staff and be able to turn straight back around to Micah Tease and tell him, hey, this is exactly what goes on. It kind of lines up with what we talked about last week, right? With Billy Bowman and Anthony Hill, and being able to just turn around, and the players are loving it, right? And so what does that do when you've got a former teammate that's a class or two below you? If the players are engaged and loving the coaching staff, that filters its way back, and it's an extra ace in the hole recruiting wise.
We talked last week about Peyton Bowen, who, if you're unfamiliar with him, very highly touted safety, committed to Notre Dame. But if you were with us on last week's show, we basically talked about Oklahoma is not out of the running for him. Jackson Arnold, of course, his teammate in high school, pushing hard to get him to flip to Oklahoma. He visited. When was that? Was that over the weekend? Was it last Friday?
It was practice on Friday. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, he visited late last week, and on the tail end of that, and Hoop talked about this last week as well on the show, that Oklahoma's recruiting his younger brother Eli Bowen. Well, that official offer came out over the weekend or earlier this week. So there you go. So Peyton visited. Eli Bowen got his offer. So Oklahoma continues to put the full court press on getting Peyton Bowen, who, again, if you weren't with us last week, is the real deal. He's a very, very talented player. You've seen recently what Notre Dame has done with that safety spot, and he was next in line to kind of, coming up the pike there. So a big time player that Oklahoma is chasing, and we're keeping our eyes peeled for a potential, announcement, flip at any. I mean, you never know, at any time, really. So we'll keep a close eye on this, but certainly another big player that Oklahoma continues to chase here with Mr. Bowen.
Yeah, allserious.com. We ran that story last week. Again, I highly suggest reading that story, because this is a dude that's committed to Notre Dame, been committed to Notre Dame for a while. And those are quotes that raise your eyebrow. He was not shy or anything about we talked about last week, the dating reference that he made, which was kind of head scratching. Yeah. If you're someone who's partial to the Fighting Irish, looking at that going, is he going to ever make it back to South Bend after this spring game? We'll see. It'll be interesting to follow.
Absolutely. So keep a close eye on that. Certainly a really talented player. Then his younger brother, obviously maybe coming behind him there and Eli Bowen. So there you go. Peyton Eli. I just realized that. Was that intentional? I just realized that.
Is there?
It has to be.
We have to ask him. That gotta be. It just clicked in my brain right there. That's got to be intentional, surely.
Dad's
Colts
name
fan
is Archie.
family or something.
Is there?
Dad's name's got to be Archie.
Yeah. Is there a Cooper Bowen in the family as well?
Is there an arch that's coming up through the wings? Who's going to be like the next big thing, the Messiah? All right, wrapping up here this segment. Now this goes all the way back to last summer. Who you kind of called this last July, kind of, that you felt like Bob Bowlsby was kind of waning a little bit at Big 12 Media Days last year. Now this is before we even knew about the SEC stuff that Big 12 Media Days last year. But if you didn't see it, go ahead.
Well, was it after? Was it okay? So the Big 12 Media Days came before the big announcement.
Yeah, because the
big Big 12 Media Days was like a week or two before.
Yeah, the announcement.
That's right. Yeah, I'd forgotten that
at SEC Media Day because Texas A&M was like, "Wait, what's happening?"
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
It was very funny because Bowlsby had said like a week before at Media Days that he was not concerned about realignment or teams leaving.
Yep. That's right. I'd forgotten that timeline. So you're right. When I saw him at the podium come up and speak that morning of the Big 12 Media Days, July 19th, I think it was, whatever it was, morning. He looked, he had lost some hair. He looked kind of gaunt. He looked kind of shaken a little bit. He was his usual kind of droning self at the podium.
Yeah, nothing new there. Yeah,
nothing new. But I just came away from that thinking, wonder how he's doing. Well, I don't know if you guys saw this, but Polk's report, our man Robert Allen, reported that this was while the Big 12 painted it as a mutual, I'm going to step away. Hey, that's a good idea. Kind of a mutual parting. Polk's report reported that basically the Big 12 chancellors and presidents leadership decided because of a lack of performance, they wanted to go in another direction with their commissioner. Now he's going to stick on for 3 months. He's going to stick around and he's going to transition the new guy. Tell them what's up with the TV contracts. Tell them where Oklahoma and Texas are going, that kind of thing, right? But yeah, I mean, a lack of performance. If you're firing Bob Bowlsby for a lack of performance in 2022, you're probably a little late. Am I right? I mean, no disrespect to Bob Bowlsby, but he has taken a beating in the public eye over the years because the Big 12 has always been reactionary ever since he replaced Chuck Ninus, who was the interim director. Big 12 has been reactionary. Big 12 is now it's hard for me to point fingers at Bob Bowlsby, guys, because the commissioner of the Big 12 conference is a puppet for the presidents and the chancellors. So if the puppet is not doing what you want it to do, whose fault is that? It's the president's and the chancellor's fault. So Bob Bowlsby has been a punching bag. Some of it's warranted. Some of it has been absolutely warranted. Some of it's not. Some of it is the leadership in the Big 12 who Bob Bowlsby answers to. They hired him to do their bidding. So some of it is the leadership in the Big 12 just being very, very, very poor. And I don't need to go any further than the attempt at expansion where they actually said, we're going to expand. We're going to hold online tryouts. Which at the time, nobody was doing online tryouts. This is back when everybody had money and there was no such thing as Zoom, and you flew in an airplane wherever you needed to go to meet with people and interview them. Well, the Big 12 had online tryouts, and then what did they do? They decided not to expand. And then what did they do? They decided to go out and add those same guys that they wanted to hire 5 years ago. It's like, this is the Big 12 in a nutshell. And now they fire Bob Bowlsby. It's just so Big 12.
Very much so.
You'll have to forgive me, boss. I'm not going to be as kind to Bob Bowlsby as you just were, if that's what it was, because yes, you're a puppet, but look at what's the standard in college football right now, the SEC, right? As far as leadership, money, all that stuff. Sankey's also a puppet. And you know what he does? He gets those commissioners in a room and he commands respect because he has a track record of negotiating great television deals, making great moves for the conference. So when he says, hey guys, this is what's best for the conference, they listen because he's not weak and a bumbling idiot at his job, which is what the job performance, Bob Bowlsby, the Big 12 commissioner, not Bob Bowlsby the person, but Bob Bowlsby, the Big 12 commissioner, has been a bumbling idiot for this conference. And that is why when you have a moment like that where it's clear as day to everyone from the second that A&M, Colorado, Nebraska, all those guys, Missouri, pieced out, it wasn't going to be sustainable at 10. That was going to be something that was tenable for a little bit, wasn't going to be sustainable. That's where, if you're a leader, you get everyone in a room and you say, look, we need to be someone that can demand at our next grant of rights, not someone that is the last at the table, someone that's shuffling stuff to Big 12 now. And Bob Bowlsby was too weak as a leader to get everyone in the room, get them on the same page. Because that's where, as the commissioner, you can just step in on these presidents and say, you're academic guys, I'm the TV dude. This is what we do. He was unable to do that. Then it was so easy, even though they've been reactionary, to just come out and be the PR guy of, hey, Oklahoma and Texas are mad about this and that. Let's just saber rattle and posture for a little bit. It doesn't mean anything. Bob Bowlsby coming out and making a statement on 11 a.m. kickoffs was not going to change Fox's whole strategy. But you know what it would have done? It would have made Joe Castiglione and it would have made Chris Del Conte feel like they were being heard and that their conference cared about them and was in the fight for them. You know what they didn't do? Any of that, because the contract is the contract. Bob Bowlsby should have been fired years ago. He's the reason that Oklahoma and Texas are now out. He's the reason the Big 12 is now uncertain. This is a move the Big 12 had to make, and I understand that they're complicit too in why it got here, but it's something that had to happen, and they just needed Bob Bowlsby to be the Band-Aid, get them that temporary expansion. Now go out, get someone who understands the new landscape of college football, who can help with the new contract expansion, all that. I'm happy for the Big 12 because it was not going anywhere. It was going to be relegated off the power stage if Bob Bowlsby was still the guy.
I will correct you on one thing, Ryan. He's not the reason that Oklahoma and Texas are leaving for the SEC. The money that they stand to make is the reason they're leaving for the SEC. Now, what involvement does he have in the Big 12 sticking at 35, 38, 40 million, 42 million over the next 10 years? He's involved for some, sure, because like you said, he's not a skilled, talented negotiator, aggressive, whatever it is. But you look at the projections that the SEC is going to make in 5 years, 6 years, 7 years down the road. You're talking Oklahoma is going to be bringing in, projected, again, we don't know what the TV, mass media or any of that's going to look like, but they're projected at the current rate to make over $110, $120 million per school. And whereas the Big 12 is going to be at like 46, 47, 48, they're going to creep up incrementally. That's why they're leaving. That's why they're leaving.
And that's on Bowlsby.
Some of it is. Some of it is on the I'll tell you a good example. Kevin Weiberg, way back in the day, went to the Big 12 presidents and chancellors and said, guys, gather round. I got this awesome idea. It's called the Big 12 Network, and it's going to blow up. We're going to have TVs in Dallas, and we're going to have TVs in Kansas City and Houston, and people are going to love the Big 12 because we're going to feed them something called the Big 12 Network. The presidents and chancellors looked around the room and said, Kevin, go sit down at the kids' table. We're going to have a discussion here at the big table. We don't need you and your silly ideas. What does Kevin Weiberg do? He goes to the Big Ten and creates the Big Ten Network, which is an absolute 800-pound gorilla that rakes in piles and piles of cash for the Big Ten. Kevin Weiberg was a weak leader. He wasn't forceful. He wasn't aggressive, but he came up with good ideas, and he got shouted down by the idiot presidents and chancellors of the universities of throughout the Big 12 Conference. So they've been down this road before, and he got it crammed down his throat, and he said, screw you guys, I'm going to another conference. And look what he did. He's redefined. He and others have redefined what conferences are capable of earning.
Yeah, wild stuff. It just feels like a move. Yeah, I agree. Too late. This should have happened a while ago, and you might be able to keep the Big 12 a little more intact, maybe. But I don't know. Who knows? So a wild year for the Big 12 continues. And in the midst of that, Kansas wins another basketball title. So the Big 12 has won 2 basketball titles in a row. Granted, Kansas has got like a million violations coming down the pike potentially, but banner will still hang.
It's only 5 level 1s. That's it. It's only 5 level 1s.
Yeah, only 5. One more than their national titles, which is now 4. So there you go. I mean, I don't know. Wild times, to say the least. So Bowlsby out, like who said, he's still there. He's going to be there until they get a new guy, and he's going to transition. He's going to help the new commissioner along. He's going to go to like some kind of interim role. It's weird. It's a weird situation. And Bowlsby's statement was kind of weird because his statement was kind of like, with the new challenges being presented, now seems like a good. Maybe it was like, this is about to get really hard. So it was kind of weird the way it was worded. But I don't know. While it's crazy going back to Big 12 Media Days last year, we were sitting there and it was on my birthday. So it was July 14th. That's why it's obviously I can remember it. And to now, and how different the Big 12 is and the way it's going, it's crazy. It can change quick on you. So there you go.
Looks a little different now, doesn't it? Looks this landscape of the Big 12 looks quite a bit different.
Yeah, and I'm still fascinated by what happens in the next year or two as far as will there be an overlap with the new schools and OU in Texas? Will there be a 14-team Big 12 at one point for even a year? Because that will be insane. Well, and we could have some cool trips.
23, we're supposed to have OU and Texas are supposed to still be in the Big 12. That's still 10, right? But BYU wants in, so that's 11.
Yeah.
So they're going from 10 to 11, and then the other 3 from the American are going to join in the following year. So you go from 10 to 11 to 14, and then the following year OU and Texas leave, and you go back down to 12. That's the timeline. Those are when those guys are jumping in and jumping out. So, yeah, good luck scheduling. Tim Allen at the Big 12 Conference office. Good luck scheduling that bad boy.
Well, it also feels like, if the Big 12 is talking to these schools and they're saying, if you can get in before, it wouldn't surprise me if they were saying, if you can get in before OU and Texas leave, we will give you home games against them. You will get home games like all 4 of you will get either OU or Texas at least once. That's got to be part of the allure of getting in as fast as they can. I mean, that's a big deal if UCF can host OU or host Texas. That's a huge deal. So if they can make that happen, I assume they'll try.
If the new schools get in before OU and Texas leave, do they get to split? I guess there isn't a buyout then. There isn't that $80 million that OU and Texas both have to pay to leave early. Never mind. It's a moot point. Never mind. Gonna take my ball and go home.
We'll see. It's wild. So are we going to go to Manhattan and Stillwater again, or is that over? That's all I want to know.
Just no Manhattan for
do we get another
crack at that hill in Manhattan?
I'll go to Stillwater all day, but I'm taking a flamethrower to that hill behind Bramlage. I have to go back to Manhattan.
Absolutely, yeah. What a wild. I think we need another. I think you need redemption on the hill. I think you need to take on that hill again, and this time you'll be ready, and you won't fall. It won't have rained that day this time. And
what if I take a page out of Baker's playbook and just bring like a SI Sooners flag and just wave it and plant it right where I fell on my ass?
Or we can just park on the right side of the stadium. We can just be like, no, we're parking on that side of the stadium. Your press box.
Yeah, I'm parking on the. If we go back, I am definitely parking on the west side of the stadium. I don't care what my parking pass
says. Oh, Manhattan. What a wild time. Remember the guy who just let us come in with all that equipment, didn't check any of it, too? But he checked like the back. Why? I don't know what's going on out there.
He got a wand out for you guys, but he saw me with like 15 bags, and he's like, he's good.
He's like, I don't want to check all that. So go ahead. All right, we're going to take a break here. We're going to come back. Other sports. Got lots of basketball stuff to comb through. Coaching staff changes, players hitting the portal, stuff like that. We'll wrap up Diamond Sports as well. And maybe we can get a little bit of gymnastics in there. Why not? Coming up next here on the SI Sooners podcast.
Hey guys, John Hoover for Trade Pros. Listen, they got something special going on at Trade Pros. It's the All-Star Service Agreement. Sign up now for just $25 a month, and the guys at Trade Pros will come out twice a year for routine maintenance. Plus, you get up to 2 pounds of Freon every year at no charge. And get this, if your heating or air unit needs work, It's not going to cost you anything if the repair is less than $500. And if it's more than $500, your cost comes in at just 25% of the Trade Pros price. It's the All-Star Service Program. Some conditions apply, so give the guys at Trade Pros a call, 405-639-9991, or hit them up on the website, tradeprosokc.com.
Final segment of the SI Sooners podcast, episode 117, on this wonderful Thursday in early April, moving right along here, getting into the back end of spring ball, and it'll be media days and all that. It'll be season. I was just thinking the other day, like, the season's not that far away, like the football season. Like, it really...
Like 120 days?
Yeah, you don't really think about it, but it's like by the time spring ball's over, we'll roll right into like postseason sports or the spring sports, and it's like media days will be right then, and then here we go. So wild. We're moving right along here through the spring, getting ready for this first year for Brent Venables. Let's go ahead and get to some other sports here to wrap up. Mentioned lots of basketball changes. Last week's show, kind of the theme was, look what they got coming back. You know, they're bringing back a lot, and they still are bringing back the bulk of the team, but they did have some departures this week. The first was David Patrick. This was speculated that he might take a head coaching job, and he did. He's going to Sacramento State, so one of OU's top assistants and a guy who's credited with being a really good recruiter overseas, you know, in other countries, was a big part of getting Benny Schroeder, which we haven't heard anything about him yet. But that was some speculation is he going to still come to Oklahoma if David Patrick isn't here? Now, we haven't heard anything again, but so that's kind of a question mark there. And with that, Cole Mullane just announced while we were recording that he's going to – actually, he didn't announce it. It was reported that he's going to be entering the transfer portal, which made sense. He was kind of a David Patrick guy. And then Alston Mason also earlier this week said he was entering the portal, which I'm going to have to take a bow on that one. I called that last week's show, and it just seemed – you know, like I said last week, it just seemed him and Bijan Cortez are a little redundant. So with Cortez coming back, it didn't seem to make a lot of sense to me for both guys. Plus, it didn't just body language, just scoping out. It never seemed like he was crazy about not playing. That was just me looking at him. You know, there's no reporting. That's literally just me looking at body language throughout the season. So that's kind of the news there. So some departures: Patrick, Mullane, and Mason all leaving Oklahoma.
I tell you what, I would like to have seen what David Patrick could have done in 2 years, 3 years at Oklahoma, 4 years as an assistant coach, you know, using his recruiting ties, using his international ties to go out and scour the world really for talent, bring somebody over from Australia. Those are always good storylines. I was looking forward to watching him work. And, you know, here we are, I guess, less than a year into his stay at Oklahoma. Yeah. He's taking a head coaching job. Somewhat to be expected. He's got that kind of ambition, but yeah, Sac State, man, they apparently got a guy who, like I said, is really connected internationally. And from all accounts, I never got a chance to you know, sit down and pick his brain, but from all accounts, he is a teacher of the game. He's a guy that teaches fundamentals and teaches guys things about the game. Being someone who's entrenched in the international game like he is, he teaches players about elements of the game that they hadn't thought about before. So that was something that, when he was hired, I was like, oh my God, that's a great hire. And then 1 year later, just like when he was at Arkansas, 1 year later, he's gone.
Yeah, it makes sense from his perspective. It's very clearly, it's been the model for a while, but it seems like every offseason now it's find mid-major, they go to the big dance, you win one game, and congrats, you'll have your pick of a Power 5 job somewhere. So it makes sense for a guy with those kind of recruiting ties. A.K. Mullane was a guy closely connected to him. So as soon as Patrick was gone, like Josh said, no shock that he'll be in the portal. If he like Sacramento State's probably the odds-on favorite to land him. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, like Hoover said, it's just unfortunate to not get to see that pipeline kind of develop over the past couple of years, especially because, look, I did the two-for story for us and for our Thunder affiliate at SI is like his connections to the Team Australia setup, having Josh Giddey in state for the Thunder. Josh Giddey was at a ton of women's and men's basketball games as he was kind of using the facilities on off days, stuff like that. It just made for a couple of fun storylines, just on the court of what OU could bring in, plus ties just basketball throughout the state. So sad to see him go, but it'll be interesting. It's 2 roster spots that opened up that you didn't quite think that you'd have as far as knowing for sure. So it'll be curious to see what Porter Moser does going to the portal now that he's not in, oh my God, I have to field a team mode, and how can I go find guys that can help the team? Two very different philosophies versus what he had to do in the portal last year.
Yeah, with you. David Patrick, you felt like if he could have been in Oklahoma a little longer, we could have got to see more of what an impact he had. He's credited with getting Ben Simmons to come to LSU. He's, was credited with being a really big part of that. And like I said, Benny Schroeder, kid from Germany, who is supposed to be a big part of their team potentially right away next year. He's created a big part of that. I believe I was told that he flew to Germany to like visit him and scout him and watch. Like he gets after it on that international. So it's a loss for sure. And as far as the players, Muane, I like a Cole Muane, but not to diminish him. He never saw the floor a lot last year. I don't think that that's a huge loss. It's really maybe more of a net gain in terms of just freeing a spot for you. Alston Mason, though, I liked Alston Mason. And, we saw him in practice leading up to the season. He was small, obviously. He didn't have the size, but the kid could shoot it. And he seemed like he had a chance to be a really fun player. So it's kind of a bummer that he doesn't get to stick around. And it would not surprise me at all to see him lighting it up somewhere small. And like he's like that guy putting up good points at a tiny school somewhere. They make the tournament, like he has a big tournament game. Like I could see that for Alston Mason. So that's interesting to see where he lands and how that shakes out. But no, not too damaging losses to the portal, but obviously be interested to see what OU does with those spots because they need to. And like Ryan said, you imagine Porter's gonna be hitting that portal trying to find at the very least a big man and maybe another guard. Gonna be interesting to see what they do on that front in the transfer portal. So there you go. Elsewhere, we'll go to the Diamond Sports. What's up?
Real quick, something I've been monitoring. Izzy Mosley has not hit the portal yet from Missouri State. We saw him firsthand. Homie can score. Maybe he needs to just send that tape out everywhere and hit the portal. We'll see.
Yeah, that'd be a good one. Hey, Josh, real quick too.
Yeah,
women's basketball lost one to the portal. Gabby Gregory.
Oh, that's right.
You'll remember. Yeah, no, you'll remember her in Sherry's last year. She averaged, I looked it up, 37 and a half minutes a game. 37 and a half minutes per game, and that's because they finished something like a dozen or more games with just 6 players on the floor, thanks to COVID, thanks to injuries, thanks to various illnesses, whatever else. She was one of those what they came to call the Super Six. 6 players on the roster for games. They play 5 and one bench player. Crazy. So she averaged 37 minutes a game under Sherry, and then under Jenny Baranchik, she averaged 7.9. So you dropped from almost 38 minutes a game to 8 minutes a game. She hit the transfer portal. And so she's moving on.
Yeah, important to note.
Moving over to Kansas State.
Yeah, she'll be at Kansas State. Important to note, too, that she went through a ton of medical stuff this past offseason. So it would, by the time she was back up and running, it was close to conference play, too. So Kansas State's getting a quality player. It's not just she came in and Jenny Baranchik was like, no, you're not going to play. It was trying to work her back into shape, hitting the tough of conference play. It just 2 timelines that didn't mesh up. So interested to see what she does in Manhattan. Maybe she can conquer the hill that Hoove could not.
Stay away.
I will say also, too, just a little more housekeeping thing. I saw just a little bit ago, or as we were starting to record, that Joe, I hope I say this right, Bamasile, I'm not sure. He's a guard for George Washington, is scheduled to visit Oklahoma in the next few weeks. So pretty good guard for them. Averaged like 16 points a game, 6'4" guard. So could be something to monitor there. Now, I don't know if he'd be eligible right away because I think he already transferred once. He transferred from Virginia Tech to George Washington. So I don't know. The transfer rules are so weird now. I don't know how that works, but something to keep an eye on there.
If he transferred before the transfer portal was opened, then I think he's okay. I think he's ready to go right now.
Or if he picks up a grad.
So we'll see. He's supposed to visit Oklahoma.
or grad transfer, right?
Yep. Yeah, I think he's younger. He's only listed as a sophomore on their website, but I don't know. So we'll keep an eye on that. I imagine you will be making some transfer additions in the next month or so.
They don't call him Portal Moser for nothing.
Portal Moser. Portal bleeping Moser. Shout out Todd Lisenby. All right. Wrapping up with some Diamond Sports. Softball, I do this every week. I don't know what to say about them. They won again. They're undefeated. They let UAB kind of push them a little bit. There was the one game where there was no offense for a long time. I think that was probably just – I wasn't there. Ryan, you were there, so you can speak on it better than me. But I assume that was probably just a little bit of just, I don't know, being ready to play. You're blowing everybody out kind of a thing. But still undefeated. They run ruled Tulsa last night. That's like their 27th run rule, I think. I mean, what can you say? They're rolling right along.
Yeah, that 2-0 game that was the Saturday game, 2-game series, not on Sunday. Saturday game, the second game. UAB was throwing a shift out there. They basically played their third baseman as a rover from like the slow pitch softball days of like, she's just hanging out in like shallow right center. After the game, Patty Gasso was like super complimentary, the UAB pitcher, for like pitching a perfect game as far as not like no hit or anything like that. But if you're going to run that shift, she pitched into the shift over and over and over. And it frustrated the Oklahoma lineup, but they got back-to-back homers clutch in the bottom of the sixth. Yes, bottom of the sixth, and were able to close that out. Hope Troutman was unbothered by the lack of run support. And then, that game against Tulsa was fun just because the wind was nuts. It was like 27, I think, mile-an-hour gusts. So they just played small ball. We got a squeeze play from Jocelyn Allo after the game. Patty Gasso was like, she's the home run queen. She also wants to bunt for a hit before she's done at Oklahoma, and she got thrown out. So she got the RBI, but didn't actually reach base. So Patty's like, I know that she doesn't count that. So Patty's just like smirking, like, so we'll have to try that out. So maybe Texas Tech could be prime positioning this weekend, another windy ballpark to see if Allo can bunt for a hit.
After Barry Bonds became Barry Bonds, did he ever bunt?
No,
I don't think so. Maybe
no
not.
Way.
Probably not.
No way.
Swing away, Jocelyn Allo. Swing away.
Swing away. Like Signs. You've seen that movie.
Ryan, swing away, Merrill. It's one of my favorite lines. It felt wrong not to swing. Take a cut, big fella.
Great movie. Great movie.
So, Ryan, who's the ace on this pitching staff? That's the question of the day.
Jordy Ball.
Hope Troutwine has been unbelievable. 0.16 ERA. But Jordy Ball's got 14 wins and has got that bulldog mentality that no matter who you're playing, whether it's UCLA, right, whatever they were, number 3, number 6 in the nation, she's going to go out there and mow them down, 14 strikeouts. Who's the ace? Or is it the person who actually pitched on the team last year, Nicole May, who's been, what is she, 10-0 now? I mean, it's incredible. What a great problem to have.
Yeah, it's a great problem to have, but I don't think they're like Patty Gasso. She's like, Jordy Ball's going to lead this staff. She's the one. She's just very consistent. Patty Gasso was like, Jordy pitched that Friday game against UAB. Jordy completely shut down UAB, and Patty's like, Jordy was about like a 5 out of 10 for what Jordy is, which is good enough to beat like everybody. So we just decided to give her an inning off there at the end, rest her up. It's one of the wild things of like, they have 3 studs. And normally most coaches would just do the thing of, we've got 3 aces on this staff. And Patty Gasso's just been like, no, it's Jordy Ball. And like Hope is also awesome. And Nicole May is also incredible as well. But she still is like, Jordy Ball's our ace. And she'll be out there. She'll be your Friday starter all year long. So it's just fascinating to see with Texas on the horizon next week. And then the season ending series against Oklahoma State. Do we see Jordy Ball twice in those series? It's not something we've seen a whole lot of once they've hit this part of the schedule where you're playing series.
OU baseball continuing to have ups and downs in very extreme fashion. We talked about it last week. They won that Tuesday game against Oklahoma State, which was great. They got hammered on Friday against Texas. Saturday, they came back and won. Really nice win over the Longhorns. Have a chance to win the series, and they lead 7-1 in the 7th and lose. They lose 12-8. They have 11 runs in the 7th, 8th, and 9th. To lose that game. Then they come back Tuesday night. They rolled Oral Roberts, which is, Oral Roberts is a solid program. Who in your backyard in Tulsa? It's a solid program. They actually are. They're the regular tournament team, and they hammered them. It was 8-2. Really good performance. Good bounce back from Braden Carmichael. on the mound, some good offense. Peyton Graham hit an absolute bomb in that game. So I don't know. I don't know what to make of them. Their highs are really nice. Their lows have been really low. They're a weird team, and now they play Bedlam this weekend in Stillwater. I'm going to be there on Friday and Sunday at wonderful O'Brate Stadium. Immaculate ballpark. Very excited to get out there again. It's the best ballpark in Oklahoma. I say that with complete confidence. That includes One Oak and the Brick. So excited to see that this weekend, but up and down. I mean, they were this close to a monstrous series win against Texas, and I can't help but feel like they don't blow that lead and they make that play in the ninth if the game was in Norman. And they moved it, and it, I feel like, cost them. So we'll see, but, up and down they go.
What do you do, Josh, if you're Skip? What with this kind of disparity in the result, you got like you said, a 7-1 lead on Texas. You end up losing 12-8.
Yeah,
with the series in the balance. And moving forward, you can trampoline off of that kind of win. I don't know. I am totally clueless about what this team's going to do next. I have absolutely no clue. Well, you cover them. You're a little closer to them than I am. So, what is your take on how good they can be, or maybe what their ceiling is?
Yeah. Well, what's weird about this team is that every aspect of the team has been both good and awful this year. Offense in general, situational hitting, bullpen, starting pitching, defense. All those areas have been good, but also have been the reason that they've lost that game, which is crazy. There's not any part of the team that you can really feel like you can lean on consistently game to game. Now, the offense has been pretty good for the last 3 weeks. So that's something that you can hang your hat on. They're scoring runs. Peyton Graham is red hot right now. He's getting multiple hits every game, that's your best player. You need him to be your best player. And he has been, like I said, hit that bomb on Tuesday. And Tanner Treadaway is starting to hit. Crooks is hitting. So the offense is starting to flow, but the bullpen is extremely unreliable, which is just very scary, obviously. The starting rotation, Jake Bennett's been really good. Sandlin and Martinez have both been better the last couple times out, but that bullpen, you just don't know what you're getting, which is why they've started to pitch Cade Horton a little bit out of the bullpen. They started to pitch Brett Squires out of the bullpen, and he hadn't pitched since he'd been to OU. He pitched in high school. That was it. Last time he pitched. They started to use him a little bit because they need answers for that bullpen. So I don't know. I mean, right now, D1 Baseball put out projections. I think yesterday they were projected to make the field as a 3 seed in Fayetteville. So they're right on the edge right now. They're like a bubble team right now, and the opportunities are there. They can probably hang with and beat just about anybody, but they can also pretty much lose to anybody. They're a weird team. So we'll see what happens. Huge weekend in Stillwater. Got to get at least one. Just don't get swept, I think is really, because since you beat OSU the first time, you can live with 2-2. Just you got to get one. Don't get swept, and then go see if you can't beat Texas Tech on Tuesday in Amarillo and really be feeling good about things. If you had said going into last week 2 out of 4, you would have taken that every time. But the way it happened is what makes it rough, because you had the series against Texas and you let it get away. So we'll see what happens.
They just got to clean up some stuff on the base path for me. I know they're trying to be
base paths are bad.
They're trying to be really aggressive to make up for a little bit of lack of just huge booming pop, but the number of outs they just lit on fire against Texas, because they're just like, yeah, we'll just get thrown out behind the play at third for no reason, wasting a triple on a screwed up squeeze play at the plate. That stuff, I'm just like, I watch any team do that, and I'm just like, no.
Yeah, it's been a lot of pickoffs this year, and they've been very aggressive stealing. You feel like you can kind of live with getting caught stealing.
Yeah.
They're aggressive. They're going to try and steal. But, yeah, the pickoffs and the getting thrown out trying to get, that stuff, you can't have it. So we'll see if they can clean that up. That was a big part of bringing Reggie Willits in. And the stealing has been pretty good overall, but that little stuff has been not good. So we'll see if they can clean that up. And the defense has been kind of hit or miss. They've had some flashy plays here and there, but generally speaking, the defense needs to be better. Outs given away. And we talked to Skip on Tuesday after the game. They only had one error. They made some nice plays, but he pointed out all the double plays that they didn't finish. those don't go down as errors. They don't show up but those are outs that you should have got. So I don't know. They're a weird team. We'll see what happens this weekend. I'm excited. Bedlam's always fun. O'Brien is great. So we'll see what happens this weekend in Stillwater. All right, wrapping up here. I'm going to admit my analysis is going to be very surface level here with gymnastics, but here's what I do know. GymU, Oklahoma gymnastics, it's like every year. It's silly. The women are going to the Natty again, which is, I think, it's 6 teams, right? Isn't it 6 teams in the Natty for gymnastics? I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure it is. Is it 6? Is it 4? How many is it? Oh, you don't know. Okay.
Nope,
I thought you were
don't
telling
know.
me. I think it's 6. I feel pretty good about that. And the men are in the round right before the Natty. But they're doing their thing. Gymnastics are rolling. Yeah, that's all I got. Gymnastics are rolling.
Well, KJ Kindler's going for her 8th national championship, I think.
A lot.
Or the program's 8th. So listen, they're, like you said, GymU, that's all you need to know. They're competing in Fort Worth. I think it starts on the 14th of April. So it'll be next week that the women take the floor. The women have kind of captured the imagination of the fan base. They get a lot of fans. I don't know if you guys have been to a meet, but they get a ton of fans. It's a very popular sport among the fan base. So, and then the men, listen, I think the last time I counted, there was something like 16 programs in Division I. So, take that for what it's worth. But the men are doing their thing. They're ranked second in the country. The women are ranked first. Joe Castiglione is going to have a great summer if the softball team does what they're supposed to do and the women's gymnastics team and the men's gymnastics teams win national titles. That's 3 in one calendar year. They're in this position almost every year, it seems, but that would be something. He's going to have a heck of a summer. He's going to do a lot of celebrating, I would think.
Well, that you throw in women's tennis will have a shot at the outdoor national championship. Golf is rolling, and we haven't even got to that. That's a big fixture of the Tulsa stop in the Sooner Caravan under the Stoops days is watching the men's golf team play for national championships. It could be a huge, huge, huge spring and summer, like you said, for Joe C.
Absolutely. So there you go. This has got to be the only podcast that gives you some gymnastics analysis to go along with basketball, the Diamond Sports, and football.
I would hope so.
No way there's another podcast. I refuse to believe it. So there you go. Good stuff. Another fun show, and we'll keep things rolling. Obviously, again, this weekend, Bedlam baseball. Softball continues to roll. Who they got? They got Who is it this weekend, Ryan?
3-game set in Lubbock at Tech, which shouldn't really be a huge worry, but it is the look-ahead spot to OU Texas in Austin next weekend. So a big
Tech was who they scored like 20 in one inning last year, right? That Texas Tech.
Yeah, that's the one that you and I were looking at each other just like, is this inning going to end?
That was obscene.
Can we have a mid-inning run rule?
That was obscene. So there you go. So that's what's coming out this weekend. Obviously, tons more football. We're getting Brent Venables tomorrow, Friday, again. So keep an eye out for that. And there you go. Good stuff. Opening weekend for baseball. Enjoy it. Masters, enjoy it. Great time. Spring is upon us. So there you have it. Good stuff as always. Thank you guys so much for listening. Catch next week's show, all the shows on iTunes, Spotify, Google, iHeart, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you have an Amazon-enabled device, just say, Alexa, play the SI Sooners podcast. It's also posted on our website, of course, allsooners.com. Click on the player list on your phone, your tablet, or your computer. You can also watch the video version over on Hoover's YouTube channel, John Hoover Media. Comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. It helps us out, gets us where we need to be, make this the #1 podcast in the world. That's the goal. So we'll get there at some point, I hope. Maybe OU fans will just, they'll just push this thing right to the top of all the charts. That's the dream. Like Podcast on the Prairie did that one time when they had Caleb Williams on. That's where we want to be. So there you have it. That's our show. We'll catch you guys next week. Thank you guys for listening as always.